Hello and welcome to Anatomy of a Web Page Reference, the fourth video in the series about APA citation formatting. To start, I'm not going to be able to give you an example of every type of information you can find on the web, but please know that you can always visit the library's APA formatting guide to find examples of references for many more web resources. You can find the guide on the Guides and Tutorials section of the library homepage. In this video, we'll talk about web pages and documents, like a PDF of a report that you download from a website. These come in two major forms, with and without named authors. Let's start with a web page that has an individual author or authors named, like this example from the CNN website. I'll jump right in to break it down for you. First, we see the authors' names. If you are at all familiar with APA formatting, it's no different here. You'd use the last names followed by a comma and the initials. Each initial has a period after it, and if there are two initials, you put a space between them. If there's more than one author, as in this case, you put commas between the author's names, and then before the final author, you add an ampersand, which is that and symbol. Next comes the date. Now this one looks a bit different than the typical date for a journal article or a book because it has the month and the day. With websites, you want to get this specific because they can change and be updated. That said, websites don't always give you this level of specificity. In fact, often they don't give you a date at all, not even a year, which brings me to a warning. Often the only date you can find on a web page is the copyright date, usually lurking somewhere in the footer. This is not the date you want to use. It is site-wide and probably doesn't have any relationship to when the information on this particular page was created. In the situation where you don't have a date provided, you simply use lowercase n period d period in the parentheses for no date. You'll see an example on the summary slide near the end of this video. One last thing, before I move on from dates, you insert a period after parentheses. Now we get to the web page title, and this is a change for those familiar with the APA 6th edition. The 7th edition instructs us to put the web page title in italics. It also uses capitalization just like an article title or a book title, where the first letter of the first word is capitalized, and then the first letter of the first word after a colon, if there is one. So in this case, the C in coronavirus and the U in updates. Of course, the same goes if there are proper nouns, those would stay capitalized. The same formatting goes for titles of downloaded documents as for web pages. And finally, you also end the title with a period. After that, here's another difference from the 6th edition. APA 7th tells us to put the website name after the web page title. Frequently, that is also the organization responsible for the information, so in this case, CNN. Notice it is in plain text, and although not obvious from this example, you capitalize every major word. For example, if there were a site from the American Heart Association, all of those words would be capitalized. If the name of the site contained any ofs or any other small words, those would not be capitalized. But wait, you may be asking, aren't I supposed to spell out acronyms and references? And the answer is yes. In this case, however, CNN is no longer an acronym. It is now the only name the organization gives itself. If you look on their website, there is no About Us section or any other area that provides a different name. Even if you know what those letters used to stand for, you stick with the organization's name as it is now. Then, like with all of the other sections so far, you end the name of the organization with a period. Finally, the last element, the web address. Notice that this is the only section that does not end with a period. Okay, so that's a web page with a named author. Now for the variation, a web page without a named author, like this example from the CDC website. Again, let's start with the author. This is the kind of page where authorship is not attributed to an individual, so in this case, we make the organization the author. As you see, the reference starts with Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, followed by a period. Remember to always spell out acronyms on your reference list. In the text of your paper, you can indicate that you will be using an acronym, but here it needs to be the full name of the organization. Next up is the date, as usual, and again, you want to get as specific as you can. After that is the title of the page or document, with the same formatting as before. After that, notice that we do not include the name of the site or organization again, because it is already in the author position, so we leave it out. One exception to this: in the case of official government reports, you might include the name of the parent agency in this position. So if you had a report from the Office of Minority Health where that name went in the author position, you would then insert U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in this position, because the Office of Minority Health is a division of HHS. Finally, you end the reference like you did the other one with the web address, and once again, leave off the period. That's a lot there, so let's review. The author. If no individual names are provided, use the name of the organization that is most closely responsible for creating the information. The date. Get as specific as you can, especially for web pages, and include month and day when available. If you can't find a date, and definitely avoid using the copyright date, simply insert an N period, D period into the parentheses. Remember to italicize the web page or document title. And for authored pages or reports that do have individual authors, include the organization name after the title. That's it for Anatomy of a Web Page reference. If you'd like to test yourself on what you learned, please head to the brief quiz that follows this video in the module. Thanks.